This is the story of a young girl who falls for her tutor, a man much older than she is. Unfortunately, he doesn't feel the same way because he's engaged to someone else. But here's the twist. His fiancée doesn't seem like the best match for him. So, what do you think? Will he end up with the young girl, or will he marry his fiancée? Let's dive into this journey and uncover the lessons behind it. The story begins with Annabelle, a young and lively girl, relaxing in her room and playing games on her phone. Her dad had been knocking for a while, but she didn't hear him. Eventually, he came in and told her that her new private tutor was waiting in the living room. Annabelle was surprised. She didn't want a tutor. But her dad insisted, saying her grades were too poor, and she had no choice but to go meet the tutor. When they got to the living room, they greeted the tutor, who introduced himself as Julian. Annabelle thought his name was interesting and even said it was a beautiful name for a man. Her dad added that Annabelle was only 21 and asked Julian to be mindful of her. Then he left, but not before Annabelle followed him, asking why he had to reveal her age. Her dad laughed and told her it was so Julian would know she was just a kid. He also warned her not to misbehave, reminding her that he could send her to a school she didn't like. After hugging her, he left. Back in the living room, Annabelle asked Julian if he'd like something to eat or drink. He politely declined and asked her to bring her books instead. But Annabelle, curious as ever, asked how old he was. He smiled and replied, 31. She quietly muttered, "Not bad," and went upstairs to get her books. Later that day, Julian dozed off while waiting, and Annabelle brought him some food. He woke up, and although he initially refused the meal, she insisted, saying her dad wouldn't be happy if they hadn't studied. Reluctantly, he accepted and ate. Meanwhile, when Julian got home that evening, his fiancée Maya wasn't thrilled. She scolded him for not preparing her meal on time and warned him to step up. Surprisingly, Julian didn't get upset. Instead, he calmly promised to make it right. Imagine a man so calm while being bossed around like that. During dinner that night, Julian excitedly shared the news of his new job and the great salary he'd be earning. Maya's response? Better. At least you'll be contributing now. Just as they were talking, her phone rang, and she immediately got up to answer it, not bothering to finish the conversation. The next day, Julian resumed tutoring Annabelle, but she wasn't focused at all. Instead of paying attention, she spent the session staring at him. When he asked if she had any questions, she boldly asked if he had a girlfriend. Taken aback, he said yes. Annabelle then asked if he loved her and added that she liked him. This made Julian uncomfortable, and he warned her to stop behaving that way, saying he didn't want to lose his job. But even after the warning, Annabelle couldn't help being distracted. That night, Julian tried to be affectionate with Maya, but she brushed him off, claiming she was tired. She even reminded him that she fed and clothed him. Julian pleaded, but Maya's rude tone made him leave the bedroom to sleep in the living room. Dressed for work and found Julian cleaning. She casually said, "Well done," as he complimented her outfit and hugged her goodbye. However, her response was lukewarm, and she left without much affection. Later that day, Julian went to Annabelle's house for their lesson. To his surprise, she gifted him an expensive wristwatch. He tried to refuse, begging her to stop liking him, as it might cost him his job. But Annabelle leaned in, gave him a small peck on the cheek, and pleaded with him to accept the gift, promising she'd stop. Reluctantly, he took the watch. The following day, Julian stumbled upon something shocking while looking through Maya's bag. He found a condom and hard drugs inside. Before he could process it, Maya walked in and snatched her bag, yelling at him without showing any regret. Julian tried to ask her what was going on, but she only shouted at him and insulted him instead. One day, Annabelle's aunt came to visit, and they had a heartfelt conversation. Annabelle confided in her about her feelings for Julian and how much she loved him. Her aunt was shocked and asked how old Julian was. When Annabelle said he was 31, her aunt was even more surprised. She gently advised Annabelle not to lower herself, even if she had strong feelings for him. Just as they were talking, Julian arrived, and Annabelle introduced him to her aunt. Later that day, Annabelle's aunt was on her way home when she saw Julian walking. She offered him a ride, and he gratefully accepted. During the ride, she asked if he was aware that Annabelle liked him. Jolyon admitted that he knew, and she warned him that Annabelle's father would not be pleased if he found out. Jolyon assured her that he would never cross any boundaries, and they continued their drive. When Jolyon got home, he noticed that his fiancée, Maya, wasn't there. He called her several times, but she didn't answer. Unbeknownst to him, she was out having fun with another man. Exhausted from waiting, Jolyon fell asleep on the couch. The next morning, Maya returned home and woke Jolyon. When he asked where she had been, she lied, claiming she had to work late at the office. She apologized and quickly changed the subject, asking if he had cooked. When he said no, she immediately told him to prepare something for her to eat and went upstairs. As they ate breakfast together, Jolyon couldn't shake the thought of the protection he'd seen in Maya's bag. Feeling uneasy, he asked her if she was cheating on him. This made Maya furious, and she left the table. Jolyon quickly followed her, apologized repeatedly, and even knelt down to beg for forgiveness. Maya lied again, saying a friend must have borrowed some of her belongings and left them in her bag. Relieved, Jolyon apologized again, and she forgave him. Later that day, Jolyon went to Annabelle's house for their lesson. Annabelle suggested they eat first, as she had already ordered food, but Jolyon declined, saying he wasn't hungry. Annabelle noticed his distant behavior and asked why he was being so cold. Jolyon explained that he had a fiancée and was engaged to be married, which hurt Annabelle's feelings. They resumed the lesson, but when Jolyon said he wouldn't be able to come the next day, Annabelle, already upset, replied coldly, "That's none of my business. Your call time is 9 a.m., and if you're not here by then, just stop coming." She stormed off, leaving Jolyon surprised. That night, Annabelle cried bitterly, clearly heartbroken over Jolyon. Meanwhile, Maya was secretly meeting with Annabelle's dad, unaware that Jolyon was tutoring his daughter. She claimed to be pregnant and tried to convince him to marry her. Annabelle's father was surprised but told her he'd think about it. Later, Annabelle's dad returned home and found her looking sad and lonely in her room. Concerned, he asked what was wrong. Annabelle admitted that she liked someone, but the feelings weren't mutual. Her dad comforted her, reminding her of how beautiful and special she was, and assured her that she would be a blessing to any man who truly loved her. He hugged her warmly before leaving. That night, Maya broke up with Jolyon, revealing that she had fallen in love with someone else. She shocked him by returning the engagement ring and walking out. The next day, Jolyon went to Annabelle's house for their lesson, but he was visibly distracted. Annabelle noticed and consoled him as he tearfully told her everything about Maya. The following week, Jolyon was at Annabelle's house when Annabelle's dad and Maya walked in together. To Jolyon's shock, Annabelle's dad introduced Maya as his fiancée. Annabelle immediately protested, saying that Maya was her cousin's girlfriend and that her name was actually Kelly. Jolyon, confused, confirmed that she had told him her name was Maya. The truth unraveled, exposing Maya as a liar and a cheat. Furious, Jolyon stormed out. Annabelle confronted her father, insisting he couldn't marry Maya because she had cheated on Jolyon, who was now hurting. She also confessed that she was hurting too because she loved him. This unexpected revelation left everyone stunned. The next day, Annabelle's father warned her that she couldn't have a relationship with Jolyon. He argued that Jolyon wasn't from their class and was also far older than her. Annabelle protested, saying it wasn't a big deal, and pointing out that he too was involved with Maya, who wasn't in his age range. Her father, clearly annoyed, stood up and declared his decision final before walking away. When he saw Jolyon downstairs, he became furious and decided to end his tutoring sessions with Annabelle. Jolyon felt terrible but left quietly. Annabelle was outraged at her father's decision. They argued intensely before she left the house, visibly disappointed. The next day, Annabelle visited Jolyon to talk. During their conversation, Jolyon asked if she would mind if he sold the wristwatch she had gifted him to help him get an apartment. Annabelle offered to pay for the apartment instead, but Jolyon declined. He told her he didn't love her and didn't want it to seem like he was taking advantage of her kindness. Annabelle, undeterred, confessed her love for him and told him she wouldn't give up so easily. She then said goodbye and left. When Annabelle returned home that night, her father scolded her for staying out late. They argued once again, with her father accusing Jolyon of trying to take advantage of her. Annabelle firmly defended Jolyon. stating that he had never asked her for anything and that she was the one chasing him. Frustrated, she stormed off, leaving her father worried. He called his sister, asking her to talk to Annabelle. The following morning, Annabelle visited Julian again and asked why he kept pushing her away. Julian explained that he was 10 years older than her, didn't love her, and felt he couldn't take care of her. Though his words hurt Annabelle, she didn't say much and left quietly. That same day, Julian decided to approach Maya to see if she would reconcile with him. Unfortunately, he saw her openly flirting with another man. To make things worse, Maya noticed him watching and flirted even more, clearly trying to provoke him. Julian left, feeling deeply hurt and angry. The next day, Annabelle visited Julian again and found him in a terrible mood. When she tried to find out what had upset him, Julian lost his temper and shouted at her. Hurt by his reaction, Annabelle left in tears and went home. She cried all night, ignoring her father's attempts to comfort her. When he knocked on her door, calling out to her, she shouted at him to leave her alone and continued crying. Meanwhile, Julian was also feeling remorseful. He reflected on how he had treated Annabelle and realized she had done nothing but love him unconditionally. He regretted pushing her away and hurting her. He admitted to himself that he had found true love with Annabelle and had foolishly let it slip away because of Maya. Overwhelmed with emotion, he began to cry. The next morning, Julian went to Annabelle's house to apologize. He met her father and pleaded with him, saying he had realized how much he loved Annabelle and was ready to work hard to take care of her. As he was speaking, Annabelle arrived. Surprised, she approached him, and he declared his love for her. Overwhelmed, Annabelle hugged him tightly. Seeing their genuine feelings for each other, Annabelle's father softened. He asked Julian to bring his CV so he could help him secure a well-paying job. Wishing them well, he left the couple to bond and start their journey together. Annabelle and Julian embraced each other, filled with love and happiness. True love often comes with challenges, but with patience, understanding, and genuine intentions, love always finds a way. Thank you for watching this heartfelt and educative story from my world of movies. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories. See you in the next one.